Hi, everybody. I'm Deborah Valentine Smith. I'm the current president of AOBTA, and I'm here with grandmother Winter Jade Forrest, who used to be known as Lindy Farino. And I think a lot of you probably have worked with her, studied with her, had knowledge of her over the years. And grandmother, did you want to say something about your name?
Okay, well, about 15 to 20 years ago, I started studying indigenous medicine in the Cherokee Way with Grandmother River. And after a certain amount of time, after more than a decade, I was ordained into the priesthood and started using my medicine name, which is Winter Jade Forrest. And then after, let's see, a couple of years ago, after moving here to Chicago, somebody texted me and said, I was just in a sweat lodge, and the person who led the sweat lodge was talking about grandmother, grandfather, aunt, and uncle, the way those terms are used in the Native American traditions, and said, I feel like I should be calling you grandmother. And it freaked me out. I'm like, OMG. And all I could do was sort of type back, okay, okay, I'll think about it, and I'll let you know. And it started this thing in me. And of course, I called Grandmother River many, many times, telling her that I felt like that was really a wake-up call to me, that I should be stepping up, and but that I was freaked out about it, blah, 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 all this stuff. And she told me, you know, you don't have to be grandmother right away. You could be auntie. And while she's saying that to me, my own spirit guides are talking to me saying, you've been auntie for years already. You know, you just haven't called yourself that. And I told that to grandmother, and she said that she felt that that was right, and that she gave me sanction to go ahead and be ordained. So I now use my medicine name, which is Winter Jade. Forrest is the last name. But people can call me Jade if they're not calling me grandmother. I like to be called grandmother because it makes me step up into the role. Grandmother is the name in the Cherokee tradition basically for being a priest. If you're a woman, you're grandmother, and if you're a man, your grandfather. So I am a priest in the tradition, and I like being addressed as such because it reminds me that I have that responsibility, which I take very seriously. Thank you for asking, Debbie. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to just say briefly that grandmother and I have known each other for about 40 years. Originally at the Ohashi Atsu, in the Shiatsu Education Center, it used to be called, in New York City.
The Shiatsu Education Center of America.
America, right. And then we reconnected through the AOBTA, and I wanted to just grandmother was one of the original founders of the AOBTA, and so I really wanted you to talk to us about the reason why you got together with those people who were founding it in the early days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I was with this group of people before it was actually founded. Founding it is a legal term, and at that time, I didn't have the money to buy in, so I'm not, what do you call, literally a founding member. I'm not listed as a founding member, but I am the foundation member with 12 other compatriots from across the country. We started this thing that turned into the AOBTA. So there was a small organization at that time. This was in the mid to late 80s where we started having these conversations. And Cindy Banker at that time had an organization called the American Shiatsu Association, the ASA. And I got a call. I was living in and teaching in Boulder at the time. And I got a call from this man named Nandi, he was calling himself. He was living in an ashram at that time. I don't know that he was even using his last name. People probably now know him as Carl Dubitsky. He actually wrote a book called Bodywork Shiatsu, which is a term I gave him because I was so, in those days, I was so Zen Shiatsu. I was impossibly prejudiced against all other forms of shiatsu and all massage. I was terrible. And when I met Nandi and he showed me what he did, I said, well, that's not shiatsu, that's body work. Right? And he said he was going to call it body work shiatsu. But anyway, Nandi was the one, I think probably along with Steve Schenkman. I don't know which of them came first. I suspect it was Nandi only because he was the person who contacted me. And he was calling people across the country saying, you know, there's this ASA up there in New England, and it's very New England centric. And it doesn't really represent all of us who are doing shiatsu everywhere. And, you know, it would be nice to have an organization that does. And I thought that was a great idea. I think I had been to maybe one ASA convention, maybe not even, I'm not sure. I can't really remember. You know, menopause takes a lot of the memory away. So, um, I of course knew Cindy, and I knew of the ASA. I'd probably been there once. But anyway, I understood what he meant. I had never thought of it because I myself am from New England. I'm living in Chicago now, and I've lived all over the United States. But at that time, you know, it didn't dawn on me. New England isms are natural to me, even to this day, even though I've been gone for much longer than I lived there. But I thought, yeah, I understand what he's saying there, and this is a good idea, you know, especially since I was out in Boulder training shiatsu therapists out there. And he invited me to Florida where he was living. I went there a few times on my own money. This was all, I mean, people don't understand what volunteerism was back in those days. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. So, but I flew out to Florida a couple of times to meet with him, talk about what we wanted. At one point, he was the one gathering people. I was helping him form ideas and thinking about how we would do things, what we wanted, all of that. But he was the one making all the contacts. He didn't have as busy a practice as I had. He had more time for it. And also he had more talent for it. I'm not that good at talking to people I don't know. So he was gathering people, and at one time a bunch of us met in Chicago, or just outside Chicago in DuPage County. And that, I think, is when I met Steve Schenkman. And Steve and Nandi, who has since become Carl, they were the heavy hitters for motivating this movement to get a broader base for a shiatsu organization. And we met over the period of probably a year or more. And we all came together on what we could envision as a thing. And we went to an ASA convention to talk to Cindy, tell her what we'd been thinking. There were 13 of us who actually went to that convention at the time, and many of those 13 of us talked to her individually at various times, telling her our perspectives about it, why it might be good. And all of us had the perception that she was very reticent. But after the last person talked to her, which was me, she was up sort of in the convention. Mm-hmm. And she told everybody that this had been presented to her, that she'd really thought about it. And she said, this is really what I've always wanted. I've always wanted it to be a bigger organization than just New England. And she went for it, and we were so happy. So then at that time, we formed what's called an interim committee. So there's the time between deciding to do it and actually legally doing it. And during this interim committee, I, along with Ken Slining, became the director of education. We were co-directors. And in that position, I led a committee that formed the clinical practice portion of the AOBTA standards, which are still in place to this day. Yeah. And yeah, and at some point too, during the the development of the organization, not in this first year. That interim committee was about a year long before the actual papers were drawn up and it became the AOBTA, which was which had a different title at the time. The acronym was the same,
Right.
but the words were different. But it became the AOBTA, and then over the development of the AOBTA over a period of years, we came to the conclusion too that we would like a national exam as well as a national organization. And we approached the NCCA, it was at the time, the National Commission for the Certification of Acupuncturists.
Right.
And we asked them to do this national thing, and that's when they added the OM, so National Certification for Acupuncturists and Oriental Medicine. And then herbs came in later under that too. But that's another thing that the AOBTA accomplished. Unfortunately, they talk about shiatsu therapists as trying to herd cats, and we couldn't get enough people to actually go for the national certification. So after a few years, they had to drop it altogether. They weren't making enough money to hold the exam, right, because we weren't doing that. But anyway, there was a lot of activity in those early days to really build the profession up to, you know, to a level where the public knew about it and we were practicing professionally. Yeah, it was very good.
What's your favorite memory of those early days?
I mean, I loved meeting those people across the country. I have always loved seeing what people are doing with shiatsu across the country, so much so that there was a point in my life in my 30s and 40s and into my 50s where I was moving every 2.5 to 3 years because I would go to another state to put a nationally certified program into a school there, right? Yeah. And so Nandi started calling me the Johnny Appleseed of shiatsu, which I love. I want that in my obituary. But those early days, there was so much excitement over the idea of having this wonderful organization, and those people were all those people that we came together as. They were all as passionate as I was and as Nandi was, and it was just so exciting and so wonderful. And also Steve and Nandi were like a comedy pair. They were like Abbott and Costello or something. It was just way fun to be around them. So yes. And then if we go to a moment, I mean, maybe that moment when Cindy said yes was just ecstatic. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of curious. We didn't talk about this, but I'm kind of curious because at some point you got together with other forms also, like Twina and Jin Shindo is my form, and you know, and that became even a broader coalition. Do you remember that?
Well, I remember that Iona Teagarden was one of the people who was approached by Nandi at the time. Right. And that might have been the opening for it. I don't think, at that time, I don't think though that we had more than shiatsu and Jin Shindo when we first formed. I don't recall that we did. Okay. But because the name was, you know, it was all about Asian body work at some point. And I'm not sure about this, you know, when I was implementing the program at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine with acupuncturists, the shiatsu course that I was teaching got popular enough that we added a clinic to it right there in the acupuncture college student clinic. And it was making a lot of money for the school. And they also offered, if you were an acupuncturist student at that school, you could choose for body work either shiatsu or Twina. They had a Twina teacher there from China. And so at some point, they also opened a Twina student clinic. And it might have been at that time that one of the students, the one actually, Gonzo Flores, who is the one who said to me, you know, you should have a clinic here. We need a clinic here. And then I approached the administration and we did it. But he was in the Twina program. He had already done shiatsu with me. He was now doing the Twina program. And it might have been his instigation that asked for that. I'm not sure when that happened. But I think that that was the next non-shiatsu or non-jinshin
Yeah.
form that came. And
I,
that
I,
opened the door for all the others.
yeah, and I think part of the impetus too was getting enough people for the exam, getting enough, you know,
Ah,
right, getting enough bodies.
I don't know that I even knew that.
Yeah,
That committee that we formed to write the exam for the NCCAOM, we had a lot of body workers, AOBTA members there who were also either acupuncturists or studying to become acupuncturists.
right.
And a lot of our exam um, came from them because the NCCA told us that in order for us to have an exam or to have a certification, that there had to be some body of information that was common with acupuncturists, they would need that in order to be able to offer it.
Right.
And so we chose TCM as that common ground.
Right.
And with that common ground, the acupuncturists, I'm going to use the word take over. They kind of took over the exam. They wanted in a lot of things that those of us who were not acupuncturists didn't care about and didn't want. But they won. And at the end, when we finished the exam, the NCCA told us that our exam was more difficult than the acupuncturist's
I
exam.
believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. And
So,
that carried through. I was on the exam development committee for the later years. And one of the requirements, which is important for Asian bodywork therapists to think about, was that every exam had to be demonstrably printed somewhere in some book. So to get questions that were specifically shiatsu or specifically acupressure, there wasn't a whole lot,
yeah,
of material that we could draw from. And
yeah,
again, that's something we all want to, kind of
yeah.
think about.
We aren't that kind of person.
Yeah, 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 it's true.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you also, like, why are you still a member? Why are you still hanging around?
Well, that is the question. I did drop my membership for a period of time.
Huh?
And I came back. I tell you, I don't know if I'm being too pejorative here, but shiatsu people are my people. It's my tribe. We look at things in a very different way than most people.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that, yes, I can join because of the insurance or, things like that. There are a lot of benefits. But the truth is, you can get that from other organizations that are just massage oriented. They'll let you in too. But we are a different kind of person. We are a strange bird type of person in the world. And the way we look at things, the way we perceive things, the way things hit within our emotional bodies and all that stuff is peculiar within the world, but very compatible with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're my tribe, and there ain't nobody else like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this stuff with us. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's
amazing.
my pleasure. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
After all these years, after all the states I've been through doing this, I still love it, and I would go to another one. I would, even at my ripe old age, I would do it again.
Well, you know what? We're having another convention next year, so
Yes.
you're presenting there.
Yeah.
I want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. This is a nice segue into the rest of my stuff. I want to tell people about.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And I did do a lunch and learn. So if people
Yes.
want to get a more
Yes.
of a sense of how I teach, they could check that out.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to share with people. Let me just get on here. So the website is public. It's open to everybody, aobta.org. And on here, one of the things that you can find is Grandmother Jade. If you look down at the bottom of this opening screen, the Lunch and Learn webinar collection here, if you click on that, it takes you, we have this whole series of 1-hour presentations from several different people. And they're, most of them are previews of what's going to be happening at the convention. And they're free. They're open to you. You can go at any time. This one, so this is Body Mind Skills from Kamala Quali, navigating the website, This from Diane Prismus is about applying our principles to business, you know, the three treasures and the five elements, you know, to looking at our marketing and stuff. I did a little presentation on the three treasures, the Qi, Jing, and Shen. Rick Gold, Sound in Asian Medicine, the alchemical transformation of Jing, Qi, and Shen. All these are available to you. Pam Ferguson, who some of you probably know, did a thing on ethical ways of transforming your practice during COVID. And there's grandmother. What's so special about Hara diagnosis in Zen Shiatsu, which I have to say was our favorite so far. And people really loved that presentation.
Thank you.
Michael Diagro, Rediscovering Jing, Qi, and Shen as a Foundation for Bodywork. And then Barbara Escher and Dietrich Epps just did one on racial justice and thinking about how we apply those principles to our practice and our interaction with our clients. And we're going to be doing one a month from here on out. The next one, Ruth Dolphin, is doing one on lifestyle and diet. And it keeps going. So these are available to everybody. These are free. You can come on the website and go into these. The other thing that's free that I wanted people to know about is, back to the front page here, is we, especially in response to COVID and the stuff that's happening around racial justice, we set up a page called the AOBTA Wellness Community. And if you click on this, there are all kinds of resources here. So there's a racial justice section. If you click on that, there's all kinds of stuff about how to think about this, workshops about how to relate to the topic, suggestions for readings, all kinds of stuff about that topic. And it's constantly changing. It's constantly increasing because people are contributing content. This is contributions from our members. Okay. This wellness community also has maintain your health and well-being. And this is meant to be for everybody. This is meant to be for the public and also things that you can share with your clients. So if you click here, there's stuff, and it's particularly responsive to COVID. So boosting the immune system, caring for the lungs, managing stress, general self-care, movement practices, guided meditations, music and sound, self-care collections, photo collections, safety resources. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here that and really excellent stuff that you can tell your clients about and also share with them. You know, if you're doing virtual sessions, these are some really good kinds of things to be sharing with them. And then the next section is for practitioners specifically. So hone your skills, adapt your practice, and be a resource for others. So this is a lot about doing webinars and virtual meetings with your clients, and also a lot about the financial assistance. This is maybe a little bit outdated, but there's a lot of good information there generally. Communicating with your clients, cautionary advice, reimagining your practice in relation to the distancing things, preparing to return to practice if you're in a situation where you actually can start to see people in person, share your knowledge, expand your knowledge, TCM perspectives on COVID-19, Oriental medicine community events. So that's the next section. And then the last section is for educators. So adapt, connect, and contribute. So here there's information about how to communicate, how to adapt, particularly to virtual kinds of teaching, webinars, also financial assistance for schools and instructors, and safety resources. So there's a whole lot of resources here that we really invite you to participate in. It's meant to be a community service. So I hope you'll take advantage of it. The other thing that is also open to everybody is our the AOBTA Convention, which is coming up in April and May next year, 2021. And these are the presenters. Grandmother Jade is one of our presenters. Jeffrey Ewan, Suzanne Yates, who I think probably quite a few of you know from the UK, who's doing a presentation on the menstrual cycle, Qi, Jing, and Shen in women's cycles. Here's Winter Jade, Michael Diagro, Rediscovering the Sensorium of Jing Shen, Ruth Dolphin, Barbara Escher, Pamela Ferguson, who also some of you know, Richard Gold, Bill Helm, who teaches Tuina. Diane Prismus is doing the business section, and Kamala Quali is doing the body-mind work. And Thomas Ryan is doing a presentation on his particular form. Okay, so the convention is going to be totally virtual. It's going to be spread out over starting one Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a couple of workshops in the middle of the week, and then the next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's going to be presented sequentially, and it's also going to be recorded. So people who register will have access to the live presentations, and they will also have access to recordings, so they can kind of choose, you know, how much they're going to attend in person. So we hope that you'll, you know, be interested in joining us for that. And as I said, all these things are free, or the convention you pay for, but you don't have to be a member. And another thing that I wanted to just share with you is that you can, there are other benefits of being a member of AOBTA that you can participate in by joining. And there are several ways of joining. One is as an allied member, which I think everybody on this call is probably eligible for. Our allied members have 30 hours of Asian bodywork therapy of some kind. It's a non-voting member, but access to member benefits like the convention and you know, the convention discount and things like that. Another possibility is as an associate member, which is a 150-hour curriculum. Our curriculum, the certified practitioner, is 500 hours. The associate member is 150, and if you've taken the Ohashiatsu training or the Zen Shiatsu training, you might not have the TCM component, but you could join as an associate member, and that is a full member. It's non-voting, it's voting, but it's a non-professional member. And then the last category is the certified practitioner, which the person needs to have completed the full 500 hours, which includes anatomy and physiology and stuff. And there are ways, there are options we have for helping people to also to fulfill that, you know, to if they want to get the certified practitioner membership level, that they can actually find ways to fill in whatever they need of the 500-hour curriculum. So I think that's it. Grandmother Jade, any other thoughts before we?
Well, I do have another thought. It's not helpful for anything, but I'm sorry that we can't all meet in person because we are a tribe, and it would be so nice for those of you who haven't met each other to do. It's very stimulating and inspiring.
Yeah.
So hopefully the next one will be COVID-free and able to do that. But those presenters, I know all of them, and they're very, very well versed in what they do. A lot of them are very exciting as teachers too, and so I hope people will attend.
Well, one of the things we're planning is to do virtual community connections in whatever way we can. You know, like people are doing things like virtual cocktail hours, and you know,
right.
And we're planning in as much of that as we can. We're going to have a virtual campfire and storytelling event. You know?
That's great. And you do get to see everybody's real whole face.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Debbie. And
thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for doing this for us, Kamiko, because I'm so sorry I just am not available at the time you have your Saturday meeting. You should tell, in case AOBTA members are listening who don't know about Kamiko's weekly things, let's tell them.
Yes. Well, I'll let well, yeah. So Kamiko is holding a global shiatsu meeting every Saturday with some great presenters, and it's actually on our AOBTA calendar. She posts it. So
Great.
if you look for the AOBTA calendar, look for the global shiatsu event for every.
Good. And if you click on it, she'll send you the link.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
it's
so much.
international too. Thank you too. It's so good to
Yeah,
see you.
take care.
Bye,
You too.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.